The most expensive royal rings ever sold that shock the world. Some rings are beautiful, some are rare, but a handful, a very small, very dangerous handful, have passed through the hands of emperors, queens, and kings who changed the course of history. They survived wars, revolutions, and the collapse of entire dynasties. And then, one day, they appeared behind a velvet rope at auction, and the world held its breath. What you're about to watch is not just the story of jewellery, it is the story of power, obsession, and fortunes so staggering they still don't feel real. Stay with us, because the most shocking entry on this list is not the one you expect. The Mughal Emperor's Jade Archer's Ring. Before there were diamond solitaires and platinum bands, there was this, a thumb ring, carved from a single piece of deep green jade, worn not as decoration, but as armour for the draw hand of a Mughal emperor during archery. These rings were worn by the emperors of one of the wealthiest empires the world has ever known, men who ruled over a third of the world's GDP at their peak. The jade is fused with gold inlay, the craftsmanship unlike anything produced in the Western world at the same period. It was looted during the colonial era and vanished into private hands for generations before resurfacing at Bonhams, where it sold for a figure that surprised even seasoned collectors. It is the only ring on this list that was built to be used in battle, and that distinction alone makes it priceless. Today it sits in a private collection, the identity of its owner undisclosed. King Farouk of Egypt's large emerald cabochon ring. King Farouk of Egypt was many things. The last king before the 1952 revolution stripped him of his throne and sent him into exile. He was also, without question, one of the greatest collectors of jewellery the modern world has ever seen. Among the most coveted pieces from his legendary collection was his large emerald cabochon ring, a deep vivid green stone of remarkable size, set in gold and crafted with a kind of opulence that defined his reign. The emerald cabochon cut, domed and facetted, polished to a mirror, is among the rarest forms for a stone of that calibre, as it demands absolute internal clarity and colour saturation to withstand scrutiny. When Farouk was deposed, his entire royal collection was seized and auctioned off by the new Egyptian government, and pieces from his treasury scattered across the globe. This ring passed through several private sales, fetching figures that reflected not just its material value, but the extraordinary weight of its history. It is now held in a private European collection. The Romanov Imperial Sapphire Ring. When the Bolshevik Revolution brought down the Romanov dynasty in 1917, one of the greatest royal jewellery collections in human history was shattered overnight. Pieces were smuggled out of Russia in the linings of coats, hidden in the false bottoms of trunks, sold in back rooms across Paris and London for fractions of their worth. Among the pieces that resurfaced decades later was a deep blue sapphire ring, its provenance debated, its beauty undeniable. The sapphire, sourced from the imperial treasury, is of a colour and clarity that was available only to the most powerful ruling families of its era. It has appeared at European auction houses multiple times across the decades, the mystery of its exact ownership history only deepening its allure and its value. Part of what makes a Romanov piece so electric is the story behind it, that this object survived one of the most violent political upheavals of the 20th century, that someone risked their life to carry it across a border. That tension never leaves it. Its current whereabouts remain fittingly unknown. Wallis Simpson's Emerald Cartier Engagement Ring. A 19.77 carat emerald-cut Cartier ring, but it is not the stone that makes people stop breathing when they look at it. It is what is engraved inside the band. We are ours now 27 by 36. The date is October 27th, 1936, the day Edward VIII, King of England, proposed to Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee whom the British establishment had declared entirely unacceptable as a royal consort. Within weeks of that inscription being engraved, Edward would abdicate the throne of the British Empire, surrendering the most powerful crown on earth for the woman who wore this ring. Cartier designed it at the height of their Art Deco period, and the deep green of the emerald against the platinum setting remains one of the most striking combinations in the history of fine jewellery. It was sold at Sotheby's in 1987 as part of the Windsor collection sale, an event that made front pages across the world, for $1.98 million. It now resides in a private collection, the inscription still perfectly legible, the weight of its history entirely intact. Duke of Windsor's ring. The 1987 Christie's sale of the Duke of Windsor's jewellery collection was not simply an auction, it was a reckoning. Edward VIII had walked away from the British throne in 1936, and for the rest of his life he poured his devotion and his wealth into gifts for Wallis Simpson. The pieces that came to Christie's that April were the physical record of that devotion. Rings set with rubies, sapphires and diamonds, each one commissioned personally, many inscribed with dates and private messages that read like a love story compressed into metal and stone. One ring from the collection, a bold and architecturally striking piece that reflected Edward's particular taste for modernity over tradition, sold for figures well above estimate in the $3 million range. The sale itself was a cultural moment. The jewellery of the man who gave up everything attracted bidders from across the globe, each one wanting a fragment of the most dramatic abdication in royal history. The pieces are now scattered among private collectors worldwide. Empress Josephine's emerald and diamond ring. Napoleon Bonaparte was not a sentimental man by reputation, but when it came to Josephine, history tells a different story entirely. He wrote her letters of devastating intimacy during military campaigns. He obsessed over her. He also lavished her with jewellery, commissioning pieces from the finest Parisian workshops of the early 19th century, at a moment when French craftsmanship was, quite simply, the best the world had ever produced. Among the most celebrated pieces connected to Josephine is her emerald and diamond ring, a deep green Colombian emerald of exceptional quality, surrounded by old cut diamonds in a setting that speaks of both imperial grandeur and personal tenderness. Josephine wore it during some of the most consequential years of the Napoleonic era, at court in Paris, at diplomatic functions that shaped the map of Europe. Pieces attributed to Josephine's personal collection have sold at multi-million figures at European auction houses across several decades, the French imperial provenance alone commanding a premium that no other royal lineage quite matches. Several are now held in museum collections across France. Elizabeth Taylor's Krupp diamond ring. In 1968, Richard Burton walked into an auction room and bought a 33.19 carat Asher cut diamond for $307,000. He then put it on Elizabeth Taylor's finger and watched the world go mad. The ring had originally belonged to German aristocrat Vera Krupp, a woman of considerable social standing, but it was Taylor who turned it into legend. She wore it everywhere. She talked about it in interviews. She once reportedly showed it to Princess Margaret, who tried it on, and Taylor asked for it back with the kind of directness that only Elizabeth Taylor could deploy. The Asher cut, geometric, deep, a pattern of concentric squares that draws the eye into the stone rather than across its surface, was at that time considered old-fashioned. Taylor made it iconic again. When her collection came to Christie's in 2011, the ring, now carrying over 4 decades of her personal mythology, sold for $8.8 million. That is a 2,800% increase on what Burton paid for it. It is now held in a private collection, still as extraordinary as the woman who wore it. The Begum of Baroda diamond ring. The Baroda royal family were not simply wealthy. They were among the most extravagantly jewelled dynasties in the history of the world, a family whose treasury contained stones that European royalty actively sought to acquire and never could. The Gaekwad rulers of Baroda accumulated diamonds, emeralds, rubies and pearls across centuries of unbroken power, and their collection is considered, by every serious historian of royal jewellery, to be among the greatest ever assembled. The diamond ring associated with the Begum of Baroda features a stone of remarkable size and clarity, a white diamond of a quality that the Baroda family was uniquely positioned to obtain, set with the kind of understated magnificence that characterises the finest Indian royal jewellery. When pieces from the Baroda collection began appearing at Sotheby's across various decades, they consistently exceeded their estimates, because collectors understood that the provenance alone represented something that could never be replicated. The ring has sold for figures exceeding $10 million, and its current location is held in a private collection. The Belle of Asia Sapphire ring. Not everything on this list is a diamond, and the Belle of Asia is proof, if any were needed, that the right sapphire can stop a room just as completely. At 392.52 carats, it is one of the largest Ceylon sapphires ever brought to auction. Ceylon sapphires, from what is now Sri Lanka, are universally regarded as the finest in the world. Their particular cornflower blue, a colour that no synthetic can fully replicate and no other deposit quite produces. The ring passed through British colonial aristocracy, moving between hands at the highest levels of imperial society, accumulating the kind of provenance that auction houses speak about in hushed tones. When it appeared at Christie's Geneva in 2014, it sold for $17.3 million, a world record for a sapphire ring at that time. The weight of the stone, the depth of its colour, and the unbroken chain of aristocratic ownership across more than a century of history combined to produce a number that made headlines across the luxury press. It now resides in a private Asian collection. The Archduke Joseph diamond ring. There are diamonds and then there are diamonds like this one. The Archduke Joseph diamond is 76.02 carats, D colour, and internally flawless, which means it sits at the absolute pinnacle of every grading system in existence. D colour is the highest possible designation. Internally flawless means no inclusions visible under 10 times magnification, at 76 carats. It is, in the language of gemology, as close to a perfect diamond as human beings have ever extracted from the earth. It belonged to Archduke Joseph August of Austria, a member of the Habsburg imperial family, one of the longest reigning royal dynasties in European history. The Habsburg provenance alone would have guaranteed a significant premium. The quality of the stone elevated it to a different category entirely. At Christie's Geneva in 2012, it sold for $21.5 million to a private collector whose identity has never been confirmed. The combination of imperial lineage and geological perfection in a single object is, frankly, unlikely to occur again. The Wittelsbach-Graff diamond ring. This ring has been royal longer than most countries have existed. In 1664, King Philip IV of Spain included a deep blue diamond in the dowry of his daughter, Infanta Margarita Teresa, as she prepared to marry Leopold I of the Habsburg Empire. That is the beginning of the Wittelsbach diamond's documented royal journey, a journey that spans 3.5 centuries and passes through the hands of the Spanish crown, the Bavarian royal family, and eventually into the rooms of Christie's in 2008. The stone is a 31.06 carat fancy deep greyish-blue diamond, a colour so rare that at the time of its sale only a handful of comparable stones existed anywhere on Earth. The 360-plus years of fully documented royal ownership is itself a record that no other diamond on the auction market can match. In 2008, Christie's sold it for $24.3 million to jeweller Lawrence Graff, who controversially recut the stone to improve its clarity. The diamond world held its breath. The ring now bears his name, but its history belongs to European royalty, and no recutting will ever change that. Princess Grace of Monaco's Cartier ring. Grace Kelly was already one of the most celebrated women on earth when Prince Rainier III of Monaco placed a 10.48 carat emerald-cut diamond Cartier ring on her finger in 1956. She was an Academy Award-winning actress at the height of her powers. He was the ruler of one of the smallest and most glamorous principalities in Europe. The engagement made the front page of every newspaper in the Western world. Cartier had designed the ring with the precise intention of matching the woman, its clarity, its proportions, its quiet authority. Grace wore it throughout her years as Princess of Monaco, appearing in it at state occasions and diplomatic functions that put it before the cameras of the entire world. The combination of Cartier craftsmanship, exceptional diamond quality, and the personal history of a Hollywood star turned royal princess elevated this ring to a cultural status beyond any price. It is considered among the most valuable royal engagement rings ever produced, with valuations placing it in the region of $38.8 million. It remains within the Monaco Royal Collection. the Williamson pink diamond ring. The story of this ring begins in Canada and ends on the finger of the woman who would become Queen Elizabeth II, and even that does not fully capture it. In 1947, Canadian geologist John Williamson presented a remarkable gift at the wedding of Princess Elizabeth and Prince Philip, a 23.6 carat fancy vivid pink diamond mined from his own Mwadwi mine in Tanzania. It was recut by Cartier to 11.15 carats and set into a flower-shaped brooch that Elizabeth wore for decades. In 2022, Sotheby's Hong Kong offered the Williamson Pink Star, a 11.15 carat fancy vivid pink diamond from the same mine cut and set as a ring, and the bidding escalated to approximately £45 million. The Williamson mine produces some of the finest pink diamonds on Earth, and fancy vivid pink is the rarest colour designation in the entire diamond grading system. Fewer stones reach that designation each year than almost any other category of precious gem. The ring sold to an Asian private collector and has not been seen publicly since. The Blue Royale diamond ring. This is the most recent entry on this list, and it arrived in the auction world with the force of something that had been building for decades. The Blue Royale is the largest internally flawless fancy vivid blue diamond ever presented at auction. A 17.61 carat stone of a colour and clarity so exceptional that gemologists from every major laboratory used language they almost never use when describing it. Blue diamonds of this calibre are formed under extraordinary geological conditions that occur only in a handful of places on Earth, and stones of this size and grade are produced perhaps once in a generation. At Christie's Geneva in November 2023, it sold for $44 million to a private collector. What makes this entry particularly staggering is that it happened so recently. This is not a relic of a gilded past. This is the market for exceptional stones in 2023, operating exactly as it always has when something truly irreplaceable enters the room. The Pink Star Diamond Ring. And here we arrive, the number that ends every conversation about expensive rings, $71.2 million. The Pink Star is a 59.60 carat internally flawless, fancy vivid pink diamond, the largest of its kind ever graded by the Gemological Institute of America. It was mined by De Beers in 1999 and took over 2 years to cut and polish, a process so delicate and so consequential that the team responsible reportedly did not sleep well for the duration. It came to Sotheby's in April 2017, and when the hammer fell at $71.2 million, paid by Chow Tai Fook Enterprises, who renamed it the CTF Pink Star, it became not just the most expensive ring ever sold at auction, but the most expensive jewel of any kind ever sold at auction, a record it still holds. There is no qualifier, no category, no asterisk. It is simply the most expensive. The pink diamond is the rarest colour in the natural diamond world. Internally flawless at 59 carats is a geological event so unlikely it may not occur again in our lifetimes. It now resides in Hong Kong, in the collection of one of Asia's most prominent luxury empires, the final destination of a stone that was, from the moment it left the earth, always destined to be extraordinary.